And we welcome you to the Organized Investor Show, brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management. It's me, your host, Erik Ainge, former UTQB. Played a little bit for the Jets while I held a clipboard mainly, but, well, they liked me there anyways, mainly because I didn't screw it up. And not just that. Today, guys, on the show, we are going to go after a question most people in this state have never actually stopped and asked out loud. Is your financial advisor actually managing your money, or is he just managing you? Well, that's the entire show. And I'll tell you up front, this is going to be one that steps on some toes. If you have a guy in the suburban office somewhere who sends you a nice birthday card and pats your hand when the market drops, get a notebook for this one. Joining me as always on the show, the team that makes it possible here on the Organized Investor Show. That's the man, Jerry Goodman, 43 years in the business and a certified financial planner, the actual brain trust on the investment side, along with his son-in-law, Jared Hubbard, and that's also Megan's husband, Megan Hubbard, with us. Jerry's daughter, former first grade teacher at CAK, and has a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. She is the reason anyone who is not a finance nerd can actually follow along what we say right here on the air. And as always, my lovely wife, Susan Ainge, currently studying hard for her Series 7 license and bringing the fresh eyes view of what this whole industry actually looks like from the outside in. You're in good hands, I promise. Set hut. Let's get into it.
And Erik, the most important thing for listeners to hear right at the top, we are not picking on one specific firm today. Show 21, we went after Fisher Investments.
We did.
That whole steakhouse seminar pipeline.
It was fun.
This show's going to be different. This is about the local guy in the nice suburban office with the framed credentials, the comfortable chairs, and the calendar full of birthday cards. He's probably a perfectly nice human being, but nice human beings, I'm putting that in air quotes, and portfolio managers, also air quoted, are not the same job description. And if you cannot tell the difference, well, somebody is making real money off of that confusion.
And that's right, Megan. And I want our listeners to understand exactly how this model works at most of these really big firms. Your advisor in town basically does not pick the stocks in your portfolio. You understand that? He does not decide what to buy. He does not decide what to sell. There is some corporate office somewhere, usually in a big city, far, far away, that you've never been to, that has an investment committee, okay? They build these portfolios, and your advisor's basic job is to take that model and apply it to your account, along with thousands of other accounts. So he's not advising, he's basically distributing.
And as I've been studying for the Series 7, I have been reading the actual training materials these advisors use, and it is eye-opening. The training is heavy on compliance, heavy on relationship building, heavy on prospecting, presentation skills, and what they politely call asset gathering. The training on actually selecting individual stocks for an individual client is, and I'm being kind, basically non-existent, because you're not supposed to do that. You are supposed to put clients into the firm's approved products from the firm's approved list. That is the actual job description in writing.
There it is, and here it is. Here's the football version for what they just described, guys. Imagine your kid's high school quarterback coach was actually employed by the league office downtown. And every week, the league office mails in the playbook for that week's games. He cannot change it, cannot audible, cannot read the defense and call something different. He just hands out the play card to your kid, tells them to run it. That's not coaching, that's delivery. And by the way, there's a reason nobody does that. And by the way, your financial advisor, well, doing the same thing. Reading the play card from the corporate office, handing it to you with a smile and a cute coffee mug.
And the play card is not customized to you. That is the part that really should make people stop and think. It's the same play card going out to thousands of households. Your advisor in Knoxville, his colleagues in Cleveland, his colleague in Sacramento, all running the same model portfolio for clients in completely different stages of life. Some are still accumulating. Some are about to retire. Some are probably widowed. Some are about to maybe inherit a business. It's the same playbook. It's the same fund lineup, and it's the same model. The only thing that changes from one client to the next is the birthday card.
So there's a financial reason why it works this way, and everybody needs to hear this. There's what's called a revenue sharing arrangements between all of these mutual fund companies and the big brokerage firms, okay? Basically, they have these approved product lists where certain funds get preferential treatment because the fund has some sort of backdoor deal in place. There are also maybe sales contests, vacation incentives, tied to all these certain product types of placements. Now, this is not some sort of conspiracy theory. These are basically public disclosed arrangements that almost anybody can read if they'll pull out the fine print. The advisor sitting across from you may genuinely like you, but the products on his desk, they got there because of a contract that you have never seen.
And Eric, when I was first dating you, I had a friend whose dad was a financial advisor at one of the big national firms.
Friend, huh?
He used to talk about the trip every single year. The trip was Hawaii or Mexico or somewhere expensive, and you only qualified for the trip if you sold a certain volume of a certain product line. That was when it really started clicking for me what these so-called advisors actually do for a living. They sell. The job is sales. The advice is just the wrapper around the sale.
And the title inflation in this industry should be a federal crime. Vice president, senior vice president, wealth strategist, senior portfolio consultant. These are not jobs. Those are bumper stickers the firm prints because expensive sounding titles make clients feel important. The actual job description on the back of the door is financial advisor, and the actual job is selling the firm's approved products to qualified prospects. But the business card says senior wealth strategist, and that lands very differently at the country club.
And there's one more layer of this that most listeners really have never even thought about. So the approved list of products at most of these major firms, it's not the universe of all available investments, okay? It is a small sliver of the universe that the firm has basically chosen, often because of those revenue sharing arrangements that we just talked about. So your advisor, they cannot recommend something that's not on that approved list, even if it's objectively better, for your situation. So he's allowed to choose from, say, let's call it a menu. And the menu is written by people that you'll never meet in a building that you'll never visit. Basically don't even know your name. That is the invisible cage that every advisor at every big firm is operating inside of. And almost nobody outside the industry knows the cage even exists.
All right, so now let's get to what we're doing right now, what this firm does at Tennessee Wealth Management at the Organized Investor. The investment decisions are not outsourced to a corporate office in another time zone. It's Jerry, it's Jared, managing about 95 stocks, roughly 1% each, in-house with full discretionary authority. That is how we're able to make over 12,500 trades in a single day during the tariff scare in the spring of 25. A committee in a corporate office can't do that. A model portfolio cannot do that. Speed only exists when the decision maker is actually in the building. And that's Jerry. That's Jared right here.
So let me share with you what this approach has produced for our clients. Because this is also we're one of the very few firms out there who actually publish its numbers. For calendar 2025, the accounts that Jared and I manage average a net return of 36.6%.
Say it again.
36.6%. A little bit of a good year. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 13% for that same time frame. A difference of only 23 percentage points. 3-year average return, 19.3% versus 13% for the Dow. 5-year average, 13.3% versus 9 points for the Dow. And going out an entire 7-year period, it's 16.7% versus 10.1% for the Dow. And this is not a one-year fluke, folks. This is basically a multi-year kind of track record that we're very proud of. And our clients are super happy about it.
You should be happy, and you guys, everyone should be proud of this and happy of this. And that's one of the reasons why it's all posted at theorganizedinvestor.com. That's right. The last 4 digits of actual client account numbers are listed right next to the return so anyone can verify them. I mean, like literally anybody. You listening right now. Nothing's hidden. Nobody's making them up. Most firms in the industry will not show you their performance. Don't even know how to if you ask. We do listen. You can go back and listen to other shows about how we tell you to do that. Most firms will not show you a benchmark comparison. You can try this experiment next week. Ask your advisor for his 5-year number versus the Dow. Ask for it in writing and watch their face change.
And the reason most advisors cannot answer that question is because they are not actually managing the portfolio. They are following a model, and the model has been built to be defensible, not exceptionable. A defensible portfolio performs roughly in line with everybody else's so that the firm cannot get sued. An exceptional portfolio requires real decisions made by a real person with real conviction. Those are 2 completely different products. Most firms sell defensible. This one sells exceptional. The track record posted online tells you the difference.
All right, and speaking of seeing the difference for yourself, let's talk about how you can do that. Once a month, our team holds the Organized Investor Workshop at Chesapeake's Out West Parkside Drive in Knoxville, 6 o'clock. It's a real meal, adult beverages on the house, if that's how you roll. 60-page workbook that covers everything we talk about on this show all in one place. One lucky person gets assigned Tennessee football from me. Most importantly, you get to meet us, hear what we're all about, and then go from there.
And hear us when we say Chesapeake is a great spot. The food's wonderful. But I want everybody to understand this. We want to be very clear about this. This is not some high-end steakhouse pitch dressed up to impress you, okay? We're not setting linen tables so we can sell you some sort of annuity with your dessert. We're not at Ruth's Chris. We're at Chesapeake's nice restaurant. The atmosphere is great. The food's great. The whole point is to educate you. We're not going to pressure you. There's no traps. There's no sign here tonight or anything like that.
And to grab a seat, you can visit theorganizedinvestor.com or call us at 865-415-2058. Again, that number, 865-415-2058. While you're there, you can go ahead and ask about the free estate planning documents that we're going to talk about a little later. Show up hungry. Show up curious. Leave smarter than when you walked in. That's the entire deal.
All right, good. Now back to the meat of today. The setup for the whole show is the phrase that Megan introduced earlier, distribution versus advice. That phrase is going to do a lot of work for this program for us for the rest of the day. And here's the part that catches most people off guard. The reason the distribution model exists is not because advisors are evil people. It exists because the distribution model is profitable, scalable, legally bulletproof. That is the holy trinity of corporate decision making.
And it's also the reason sometimes we call diversification has basically taken over this entire industry. Most firms don't want to basically make a wrong call. So they spread your money out across a variety of different investments so that nothing's really going to hurt you, although probably not help you much either. You end up with basically, say, 8 mutual funds all overlapping each other, effectively owning the entire S&P 500 in some sort of tuxedo, let's call it, paying fees for that privilege. So that's not a portfolio. Basically, it's an index, and they're charging you permission basically to own the thing. Avoiding that bloat is one of the basically 4 levers behind the 2% improvement that we actually look for and we try to bring to everybody's portfolio to help improve their long-term financial future.
Well, and talking about that 2% improvement message is the heart of the whole firm. Their goal, Jerry and Jared's goal, is to improve client net performance by at least 2% per year over what you would get at a typical firm. On $1 million portfolio over 20 years, that compounds to roughly $485,000 additional dollars. Not because 2% is huge in any single year, but because of what compounding does to 2% over 20 Christmases, 20 birthdays, 20 long, quiet, repeating years. 2% is the difference between flying first class in retirement and flying in the cheap seats. 2% is the difference between leaving something for the grandkids and barely covering property taxes.
And there are 4 levers behind that 2%. So number 1, you have lower fees, period. Number 2, avoiding mutual funds and the hidden internal costs baked into them. Then you have number 3, which is owning individual stocks instead of packaged products that own the stocks for you. And then number 4, selectivity. About 95 names, roughly 1% each, deliberately chosen, not 3,000 companies and 8 overlapping funds. You stack those 4 advantages on top of each other year after year, and that is how you reach nearly $500,000 extra dollars on $1 million account.
Let me bring this thing back home with a quick story before we head to break. All right. Her name's Margaret. Margaret, 67 years old, 22 years with the same advisor. Christmas cards every year. Remembered the grandkids' names, friendly phone calls. She had no idea her returns were below average because no one had ever shown her a comparison. When she finally ran a Morningstar report, her 5-year return was barely 7%. Her advisor was nice. Her advisor was likable. Her advisor had cost her close to $200,000 over those 20 years. Nice and effective. Not the same thing.
You know, Eric, Margaret's story is not that unusual. That is the part that everybody listening, you need to hear this, okay? We see Margaret's situation almost every week in our office. Different name, different city, same exact pattern. 20 years of trust, a handful of holiday cards, and a nice voice on the other end of the phone, but no benchmark comparison, ever. So basically, the firm has trained your advisor to be your friend. And your friend has basically been earning a percentage of your account every year for the last 2 decades.
That is the question of this whole show. You have been graded on the wrong scoreboard your entire investing life. The scoreboard your advisor has been showing you is the number bigger than last year. That's not the scoreboard. The real scoreboard is the number bigger than what was possible. Those are two completely different conversations. And the second one is the one the industry quietly does not want you to have. They don't even want you asking it. So stick with us because we're just getting warmed up. It's the Organized Investor Show on News Talk 98.7.
Want to meet the team from the Organized Investor in person? Join us at a free Organized Investor workshop. You'll get a 60-page workbook, a great meal, and learn how to get free estate planning documents through our partner Trust and Will. Our next workshop is Wednesday, May 20th at 6 p.m. at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in West Knoxville. There's no cost or obligation to attend, however, seating is limited. So reserve your spot at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058. That's 865-415-2058. Erik Ainge is the host of The Erik Ainge Show on 99.1 The Sports Animal, weekdays from 9 to noon. Erik, his wife Susan, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman are all affiliated with Tennessee Wealth Management and Prospera Financial Services in Dallas.
All right, y'all, we're back. It's the Organized Investor Show brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management. It's me, Ainge, your host. And if you're just joining us, here's the recap. We are going after a question that should bother every investor in this state.
How about this country?
That, period. Your advisor, the local guy in the suburban office with the comfortable chairs and the friendly birthday cards, is he actually managing your money? Or is he managing you? The framework we introduced last segment was distribution versus advice. He's not building your portfolio. He is delivering a model built somewhere else. With me, Jerry, 43 years of experience. Jerry Goodman, certified financial planner, runs the investment side of the firm with Jared, Megan Hubbard, Susan Ainge, and like I said, me. This segment, we are going one level deeper. We are going after something we are calling the 10,000-hour question, and it is going to make a few people uncomfortable.
I can't wait to hear what we're about to say.
Megan?
Here I go. So the framework is borrowed from Malcolm Gladwell, but the application is brand new. Gladwell's idea was that real mastery of a craft takes about 10,000 hours of focused, deliberate practice. 10,000 hours of doing the actual thing, not 10,000 hours of standing near the thing. So a surgeon needs 10,000 hours operating, not 10,000 hours in the break room. A pilot needs 10,000 hours flying, not 10,000 hours in the lobby. And here's the question that nobody asks. How many hours has your financial advisor spent specifically making, buying, and sell decisions? Not meeting with clients, not eating dinner, not signing greeting cards, buying and selling individual investments.
And the honest answer for most advisors in most firms is close to zero. Megan was asking how long have they been practicing and doing investment portfolio management? Probably not at all. Because remember, the buy and sell decisions are made somewhere else. The corporate investment committee, that's who's making those, okay? The model gets pushed out and your advisor simply applies it to your portfolio. Your advisor's 10,000 hours. If he has them, basically they're in client relationship management, okay? He has 10,000 hours of handshakes, glad handy, let us say, 10,000 hours of coffee meetings, 10,000 hours basically returning phone calls, remembering your names. Those are even valuable skills, but they're not portfolio management skills. And basically you're paying for portfolio management prices.
And this is something the Series 7 study materials make clear once you read between the lines. The exam is heavy on regulatory knowledge, ethics, suitability, and product features. There's almost nothing on actually picking individual stocks based on company fundamentals. Because the assumption built into the licensing structure is that the advisor will not be the one picking the stocks. The firm picks the stocks. The advisor presents the firm's choices. That is built into the licensing system from day one. So when somebody passes the Series 7 and gets a fancy title, what they really have permission to do is sell the firm's products to you in a compliant manner.
Let me run this football comparison real quick because this is a clean one. 10,000 hours is about what it took for me to be a quarterback when I was at Tennessee in the next level. 10,000 hours of throwing, 10,000 hours of film study, 10,000 hours of practice reps. Now imagine somebody who has never thrown a football in their life walking into a locker room and telling the offense, hey guys, we're going to do this and I'm going to be your leader and I'm going to be your quarterback. You would laugh at them. But that is exactly what's happening in financial advising every single day. A guy with 10,000 hours of relationship building experience is calling your investment plays, and nobody is laughing because, well, no one's noticed.
And there are two tests we want listeners to use this week to evaluate their own situations. We're calling them the proximity test and the first to know test. So the proximity test is very simple. When was the last time your advisor called you first? Not you calling him, but him calling you. Just out of nowhere, with an actual update on your portfolio that was not generic market commentary you could have read in a newspaper, but information from him that he is calling you with.
And first to know is the companion question that goes along with that. When the market cratered the last time, and there's been plenty of opportunities, basically the AI software sell-off this past year, for example, the Iran conflict, the tariff scare last year, who called you first, okay? Did your advisor call you that morning that the AI name started selling off and basically say, here's what we're doing about that and here's what happened in your account specifically? Or did you call him in some sort of panic, basically get rerouted to a voicemail, call back in a couple of business days? Because the second one, basically, if that's what happened to you, that's your answer. You're not on his radar screen in real time. You're on a list, and the list gets called when there's some bandwidth, not really when it matters.
And the reason for that is structural, not personal. A typical advisor at a big firm has somewhere between 200 and 400 client households. Some of the bigger producers have over 1,000. Even if that advisor wanted to call every household personally on a market-moving day, he physically cannot do that. The math will not let him. So he does what every advisor at every firm in that situation does. He calls the biggest accounts first, sends a generic email to the rest, and hope nobody notices. And mostly nobody does. That is the system.
Compare that to how this team operates during real volatility. When the AI software sell-off hit, Jerry and Jared were buying, not waiting. They had a watch list updated weekly with the names they wanted to own more of it when prices came down. I remember you calling Jerry and you were like, oh, I'm in the middle of it. I'll call you back. The names came down. And what did they do? They moved. That is what in-house full discretion 95 stocks at 1% each looks like in real time. And while they're buying, the corporate office advisor was probably on his second cup of coffee waiting for the morning conference call to tell him what to think.
And let me give you the Iran example, for example, because this one is really very, very recent. When the conflict escalated, and it was kind of just not that far back, the market reaction was basically cartoonish in terms of predictability. Travel and leisure stocks basically dropped on the fear about this international travel situation. Oil prices spiked up on the fear about supply. So within hours, you basically had this clear setup. Quality travel companies on sale or related names basically temporarily overly priced and expensive. So we trimmed some of the things that were up in price, like some oil companies. And this is not genius, folks. This is basically being aware and having basically the authority to act and take some action when you have the opportunity. A model portfolio can't do that. A committee meeting on Tuesday can't do that.
And the pattern goes back through every fear event the show has been on air for. COVID in 2020, the banking crisis in 2023, the tariff scare in 25, the AI software sell-off, and the Iran conflict in 26. Every single one of those was a window where in-house management was able to act in days while the committee model was still scheduling its next meeting. That is not theoretical. Those are the trades that built the 7-year track record this firm publishes.
And folks, I want to be very clear about this. They're not running around making wild bets during those events. The core of the portfolio is dividend growth companies, businesses that have raised dividends every year through recessions, war, pandemics in modern history. That's the anchor. What flexibility means is the ability to add to that anchor when fear creates mispricing, not gambling, selectivity. The dividend growth core does not move much during a panic. That is the fuel that lets the team buy the bargains when the rest of the market is selling. That's the entire game in one sentence.
And speaking of stories that should make people sit up, let me tell you about Karen. 8 years with a large national firm that used the same model that we're describing. She loved her advisor. She got birthday calls, holiday cards, the whole package. But when she asked him about underperformance versus the market, he told her he would, in air quotes, check with the investment team. That sentence right there is the whole show in one phrase, okay? Her trusted advisor of 8 years had never made a single investment decision. His job was relationship maintenance. And Karen had paid him about $128,000 in fees over those 8 years for someone who could not name or defend a single stock picked.
And if anything Megan said just, sounds remotely familiar to you, write this down. Once a month, our team, the Organized Investor Workshop, Chesapeake's Parkside Drive, 6 p.m., real food, adult beverages, a 60-page workbook. You come in, it's all the things we talk about on the Organized Investor Show. It's the Organized Investor Workshop, and it's all right there. And one attendee's even going to walk out with a football that I signed. You get to come hang out with us and learn more about this. It's an educational event, and you know what? I think it's a pretty good time. Visit theorganizedinvestor.com Or you can, and it's right there, workshops, RSVP takes 10 seconds, or you can call 865-415-2058.
So again, this is not a steakhouse dinner pitch with great linens and some closing in the back of this meeting, okay? There are firms in this town running these 3 nights a week, folks. When it comes really on the other end of those, there's always going to be some long-term product that's going to have a bunch of surrender fees. That is a side bet of a casino, basically dressed up in a sports coat. Our workshop is a classroom. A pitch room, like in these really great steakhouses, is nothing but a sales floor. They're 2 completely different ideas, and you basically know the difference the first 5 minutes of the presentation.
And one more thing about the workshop that surprises new attendees every single time, nobody pressures you to sign anything that night. Nobody. You can just come, eat dinner, take the workbook home, and you can never call us again. We will still consider that a win because you walked out smarter than when you walked in. That is genuinely the bet they are making with these workshops. The education sells itself when it is real.
And let me tell you about another client. We call this client Paul because he is the perfect 10,000-hour example. 3 years at Fisher Investments, loved his investment counselor. But when he started asking real questions about specific holdings during a stretch of underperformance, she told him she would reach out to the investment team. A week later, he got a generic answer back. Generic, like, well, the market has been volatile. That kind of answer you could pull off a financial news website in 5 seconds. Paul realized he was paying $15,000 a year to a middleman and getting underperformance.
And the cleanest version of this whole concept is something my dad has been saying for a really long time. You can pay a lot of money to a very nice person who is not actually doing the thing you think that you are paying them to do. And both of you can be perfectly happy with the arrangement for years, really, because the relationship feels good, because the birthday cards arrive on time, because the office has a nice view, until one day you compare your numbers to a benchmark and the whole thing falls apart in about 30 seconds.
So let me give you a quick performance recap because it really matters here. We mentioned this in the first episode. We're going to mention it again here. Calendar 2025, our clients averaged 36.3% for the year. That was 198 clients. The Dow was up 13%. 3-year track record, 19.3% versus 13.2 for the Dow. 5 years, we're at 13.3 versus 9 for the Dow. And 7 years, which is a long period of time, 16.7% versus 10.1 for the Dow. These are all posted publicly on the organizedinvestor.com. We even have the last 4 digits of the client's account numbers just so you know that these are legitimate. That is the receipt, folks. This is what selectivity, what in-house management, and avoiding diversification, what this can produce for you over a long period of time.
That's real results, and that's what we're talking about here. And here's one that really gets me about this relationship manager model. Your advisor's actual primary skill, keeping you calm during downturns, it's also the skill that hurts you the most because being kept calm and being kept invested currently are not the same thing. A relationship manager's job when the market drops is to make sure that you do not call to fire him. That is a different goal than making sure your money is doing the right thing. A real portfolio manager, hi, Jerry, in that same moment is figuring out what to buy. A relationship manager is figuring out what to text you so you don't freak out. Those are 2 totally different jobs.
And what is interesting about the Series 7 material is how openly the textbook talks about that. There is an entire section about managing client behavior during volatility. There is no comparable section on managing the portfolio during volatility, because that is not your advisor's job at most firms. The textbook itself is honest about it. The marketing is the part that obscures it.
And the irony of this whole relationship management model that we're talking about here, it actually trains the advisor to discourage you from looking at the account during a downturn. Don't check the statement. Don't panic. Just stay the course. And the advice, it sounds rather reassuring, but, it's remarkably convenient, isn't it? Because, if you happen to look closely, you do not notice the underperformance, versus the benchmark. So the firm has effectively built a system where the advisor's biggest skill is to teach you to not audit him, okay? And guess what, folks? It works. Most clients go for decades without ever running any kind of comparison on what their portfolio has been doing.
And one more story before Erik wraps this whole segment up. The Knoxville woman with the inherited money who came in last fall, paying 1.75% to a very well-dressed advisor at a firm we will not name. She had never once been shown a benchmark comparison. She didn't know what the S&P had done. She did not know what the Dow had done. She only knew that every year her statement came in the mail and the number was a little bigger or a little smaller. When we sat down and put the benchmark next to her returns, she had been underperforming by more than 3% a year for 5 years. That is a quarter of her wealth gone quietly. And the worst part, she kept saying, but he's such a nice guy.
And that's the trap. Nice is the trap. Nice gets you Christmas cards and Christmas card returns. The 10,000 hours that matter for your money are the ones somebody actually spent at the screen, on the phone, watching the watch list, making the actual buying and selling decisions. If those hours didn't happen, you have a relationship manager wearing a portfolio manager costume. You can decide on your own whether it's what you signed up for. That's why we're here, to talk you through it and help you end up, making a better decision, at least a more educated decision. Segment 3 is coming up, and it might be the one that has you cleaning out that filing cabinet tonight. It's the Organized Investor Show on News Talk 98.7, brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management.
If you're interested in a more personal learning experience, join us at the Organized Investor Workshops. Erik Ainge and the entire team will be there. The next event is scheduled for Wednesday, May 20th at 6 p.m. at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in West Knoxville. Attendees will receive a 60-page workbook, a yummy meal, and learn how to get free estate planning documents through our partner Trust and Will. Seating is limited, so reserve your spot at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058. That's 865-415-2058. Erik Ainge is the host of The Erik Ainge Show on 99.1 The Sports Animal, weekdays from 9 to noon. Erik, his wife Susan, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman are all affiliated with Tennessee Wealth Management and Prospera Financial Services in Dallas.
And we're here again. It's us. You can't avoid us. Well, you could, but I hope you don't. It's the Organized Investor Show, brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management. It's me, Ainge, again, leading the show, the lead voice of the show. And if you're just tuning in, here's what we've covered today. Most advisors at most firms are not portfolio managers. They are relationship managers. The decisions get made at corporate. The model gets pushed out, and your guy distributes it to you. Distribution versus advice. Now, in this final segment, we're going to take this from theory to your filing cabinet. There is something more specific sitting in your house right now on autopilot, and almost no one's watching it. With me, Jerry, Megan, Susan. Folks, this segment, we're talking about the 401k blind spot. And before you tune out because you think, this doesn't apply to me, whatever, about 85% of you have at least one of these sitting somewhere right now.
And here's the setup. So most working Americans, by the time they hit 50, have had 3 or 4 jobs over their careers. Each of those jobs may have come with a 401k plan. And most people, when they leave a job, they just leave the 401k sitting at the old employer. They mean to roll it over eventually, but eventually turns into 10 years and then eventually turns into, I forgot it was even there. That orphaned 401k is sitting in a default life cycle fund somewhere, slowly underperforming, and nobody is watching it.
And the question we want to ask every listener is, ask yourselves this right now. You have an advisor. Has he ever asked you about these old 401ks? Has he ever even mentioned them at all? Because there's only 2 possibilities. Number 1, he doesn't even know they exist, which basically means he doesn't know really much about your total financial situation. And basically whatever advice he's given you is really kind of just a partial view. Possibility number 2, he does know they exist, but he's decided they're really not worth his time, which means basically you're not a priority. So either way, that's a problem. You need to keep this in mind.
And from the Series 7 material, I can tell you the third uncomfortable answer. A lot of advisors at big firms have account minimums. That old 401k with $70,000 or $80,000 in it from your job back in 2014, that might be below his minimum, which means even if he did know about it, it is not commercially worth his time to roll it over and manage it. You exist on his client list at the dollar amount that justifies a phone call. The rest of your money, even if it is yours, is invisible to him by design.
That's so impersonal. All right, football time, football version of what is happening in your file cabinet. Picture this. You played for a team, you leave that team, and the team keeps one of your jerseys hanging in a locker room forever, gathering dust. Now imagine somebody is paying the laundry bill on those jerseys year after year, and that somebody, well, that's you. That is your old 401k sitting at your former employer. Default life cycle fund, internal expense ratio, nibbling away every year. Nobody watching it, nobody calling plays for it, and the laundry bill, it's yours.
And the default life cycle fund piece is something that most listeners have never had explained to them. A life cycle fund, sometimes called a target date fund, is a one-size-fits-all product designed to become more conservative as you approach a chosen retirement year. So this sounds reasonable on the surface, right? The problem is it is built for the average employee at the company at that age, not for you specifically. It doesn't know that you have a pension or that your spouse already has aggressive growth covered. It doesn't know that you're planning to retire at 55, not 65. It is a generic product designed for a generic employee, and that is exactly what most orphaned 401ks sit in by default.
So let me show you what this cost in real dollars. Let's take a 401k sitting in one of these default life cycle funds that Megan just mentioned, and let's say it has an expense ratio of about 0.75 of a percentage point. That's a typical number. Add another 1 point or 2 points of underperformance from being in that generic kind of blend instead of something more thoughtful in terms of the performance. Now, on a $100,000 balance, that's roughly $1,500 to $2,000 per year leaking out of it. Compound that over 20 years, that's $60,000, $70,000, maybe even $80,000 on just one orphaned account. Now, imagine you've got 2 or 3 of these floating around out there, and you've ignored these for the 10 or 15 years. That is a grandkid's college money, folks. This is a year or 2 of retirement spending, all gone because you're simply not paying a little attention to it.
And little things like this, that is exactly the kind of thing that the Organized Investor Workshop that is built to talk about, to surface up. Once a month at Chesapeake's Parkside Drive, 6 o'clock right there. That's where you can come. Again, Jerry, Megan, we're always talking about these educational events. Susan's going to get up there and talk to you about trust and will. And we're going to kind of tell you everything we do, right? You get a 60-page workbook. We walk through old 401ks, rollover decisions, fee analysis, the whole financial picture. And of course, one attendee is going to leave with a signed football. I think that's cool anyway. Again, all you got to do is come hang out with us, RSVP, go to theorganizedinvestor.com, workshops tab, or call 865-415-2058.
And one more time, we're not pegging this as a high-end steakhouse. This is not Ruth's Chris. It's Chesapeake's. Food's good. Atmosphere's great. The whole point, we're trying to educate you. We're not setting the linen to try to get you to sign up for some annuity that has a 15-year exit period on it. There is no sign here tonight or anytime, really, basically. Come, eat, learn, leave the workshop in your hand with a workbook and all kinds of other information that's going to be a lot of help to you. If working together makes sense down the road, great. If it doesn't, you still walk out really smarter than when you came in.
And here is something attendees often do not realize. The workshop is also where we cover the estate planning piece, which we want to talk about right now in just a little bit of detail because it's too important to bury. If you have orphaned 401k sitting around, you very likely have orphaned estate documents too. And the numbers on this are sobering.
About half of everybody listening to this show right now has not done anything related to getting their affairs in order. No will, no power of attorney, no healthcare directive, nothing. And of the people who have done something, about half of what they have already done is now inaccurate and needs probably to be updated, honestly. Names have changed, beneficiaries change, lives have changed. So when you put those two halves together, somewhere around 75% of our listeners either need to create estate planning documents from scratch, or they need to update what they've already done, what they already have in place, that they might think is accurate, but it's probably outdated.
So we're getting ready to hammer this down as hard as we possibly can. Oh, exactly. And we can help with all of this completely free of charge in conjunction with what we have an unlimited subscription with our online partner, a company called Trust and Will. Folks, this is a complete set of estate planning documents. It include durable power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, advanced healthcare directive. It can be a will or a revocable living trust, depending on what you think's best for your situation. It covers you, it could cover your spouse, or some significant other. This is completely free of any kind of cost or obligation. None. If you went directly to Trust and Will on your own, this free offer is going to save you about $500. And if you went to a local attorney, it could save you thousands of dollars.
And the help is whatever level you want it to be. 3 options, basically. We can send you the link and you do the entire thing yourself. We can send you the link and help you a little bit if you get stuck. Or we can help you out a lot, including walking through it in our office, printing the documents, signing, witnessing, and notarizing everything in a single trip. One trip, in and out, done. No multiple attorney visits, no big bill, no runaround.
And here's the part that surprises people every single time. You do not have to attend the monthly workshop to get this. This is not a, if you don't come, you can't have it. No. You don't even have to come into the office if you don't want to. The only thing you have to do is call Jerry or Jared for a brief chat. They need to ask you a couple questions, make sure you understand what you're signing up for, and answer anything that you might want to ask. Ask Jerry anything in 20 minutes. He likes to call that phone call, and they can even send you the link right there where you are.
And let's make sure we're clear about one thing here, because it really, really matters. We've been helping people organize their affairs for the last 2 decades, really 20 years, folks. We have never received any compensation for helping anybody with any of this, okay? Not a dollar, not a cent, not a referral fee, not a kickback, which means the guidance that we're trying to offer you is completely unbiased. There is literally no financial interest on our part to however you want to handle your estate planning documents. And this is very rare in this industry. It's one of the few reasons why people end up trusting us with their other investments.
And if you're finally ready to take care of all of this once and for all without any cost or obligation, you can call my dad, Jerry Goodman, at 865-415-2070. That number again is 865-415-2070. Or you can visit theorganizedinvestor.com and we'll get the link sent directly to you. 20 years of helping people without ever charging for it. That is our track record. That is not a marketing claim. That is what we do.
Just being good people, and you'd be surprised how few of them there are in the industry. Let me tie this all back to the theme of the show, guys. Distribution versus advice. Most advisors do not bring up estate planning unless there's a product attached to it, right? Something to sell you. A life insurance policy, a special trust that only they can sell, something that pays them. Most advisors do not bring up your old 401ks if those accounts are below their minimums, or maybe they just don't want to even mess with it. Most advisors do not bring up benchmark comparisons because the benchmark is going to embarrass them. Most advisors don't bring up fee transparency because the fees are how they get paid. A real advisor, a real one, brings up all those things, even if there's nothing in it for them, because the point is to actually help.
So one more time before we get through at the end of this segment, the quick performance recap, basically you need to hear this. For 2025, we had 198 accounts. The average net return was 36.3% for those accounts versus the Dow, which was at 13 points, okay? 3 years, 19.3% versus 13.2 for the Dow. 5 year, 13.3 versus 9 points for the Dow. 7 year, 16.7% versus 10 points for the Dow. So this is all posted publicly on theorganizedinvestor.com, all 198 accounts. We even include the last 4 digits of the account number so you know all these numbers are basically legitimate. They exist for real clients. This is what real looks like. Backed up by the portfolio that currently has 95 stocks with 1% each, managed in-house by myself and Jared Hubbard, and we have the flexibility to move and whatever the situation calls for it, be it an AI disruption sell-off, Iran war, COVID, tariff scare, whatever it happens to be.
And one more story, because Megan and I were talking about this in the office last week. A gentleman called in for the Ask Me Anything in 20 Minutes phone call. That call went 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 25 seconds. He came in a few days later, sat down with Jerry and Jared, and the very first thing they did was a full inventory of every old 401k, every rollover IRA, every doormat brokerage account he had forgotten about. 3 of them. 3 accounts he had not looked at in over a decade. All of them in default life cycle funds, all of them quietly underperforming. That whole picture had never been pulled together by any advisor he had ever worked with before.
And an analogy that's going to put all this together, guys, guess what? It's a football one. All right, so imagine you're an NFL quarterback, right? You're big, strong, handsome. Susan was supposed to smile at me. Nope, she's not doing that. But imagine you're an NFL quarterback and your offensive coordinator. He only watches film on the receivers. Never the running backs, never the offensive line. He still calls all the plays. He still feels like he's doing his job. He still sends you nice notes saying he believes in you, but he's calling plays based on a partial view of the offense. That is exactly what your advisor is doing if he does not know about your old 401ks, your dormant accounts, your estate planning documents, your full tax picture, your goals and dreams and aspirations. Listen, he's calling plays without watching the film. He's only watching one little thing. And the score at the end of the game is your retirement. And you deserve a coordinator who watches all the film, or checks the tape, as my old coach used to say.
Exactly. So this was kind of brought up a minute ago, so I'll bring it up one more time, this being Jerry. I have this Ask Me Anything in 20 Minutes phone call. Phone number, 865-415-2070. Again, 865-415-2070. And this little chat, we're going to try to put everything together. We're going to talk about your orphaned 401ks, rollover decisions, fee analysis, the benchmark comparisons on what other returns have been versus what you've been getting, the estate planning document, all of it. no cost, no obligation, no sign here tonight kind of a pressure, anything like that. Or you can, if you don't want to do that phone call, think about coming to our workshop, Parkside Drive. We do it once every month, 6 o'clock, real food, and versus that fake food we were talking about earlier.
Got to be real.
60-page workbook, signed football for one lucky attendee that Erik has autographed, free estate planning conversation, and we can also help you with those estate planning documents. Even if you don't want to attend the workshop or come see us, we'll help you with those as well. All of this is available, more information at theorganizedinvestor.com.
I've actually eaten a lot of fake food in my life, honestly, from all of my girls playing kitchen or
Easy bake muffins.
Not even that, like that plastic food that they would bring to you, like, here's an apple.
Like TD pretending, like, here you go.
Exactly. So, but we promise we will serve you real food. So one final thought from me before Erik wraps this whole show up.
With another analogy.
Well, of course.
That's all I do.
That's
what
why
I enjoy
he's here.
doing.
The hardest part of all of this is really not the math. The math is pretty easy. The hardest part is the conversation in your own head where you admit that maybe the nice guy in the suburban office has not actually been doing the job you thought he was doing for the last 15 years. That conversation is uncomfortable sometimes. That conversation is also expensive to avoid. So the longer you wait, the more it costs you in fees and in performance and in tax planning and in everything else, really.
All right, guys. She said I was going to wrap it. I am. Here's where I'm going to leave you today. This show was not to scare you. It was about asking you a question that almost nobody is willing to ask in the financial advice industry. Is your advisor actually managing your money, or is he managing you? Distribution versus advice. We did the proximity test, the first to know test, the 10,000-hour question, the 401k blind spot. Run those filters on your current advisor and see what comes back. And if the answers make you uncomfortable, that discomfort is information that you deserve to have. So give us a call at 865-415-2058. You can do that, or you can just visit theorganizedinvestor.com. Come to the workshop at Chesapeake's. Get estate planning documents handled while you're at it. 20 years of doing that for free should tell you something about what Jerry and the whole team's all about. 95 stocks at 1% each. Multi-year track record posted publicly with the last 4 account numbers attached. Guys, that's the offer. Transparency and success. I probably should read a disclaimer, but getting the job done. That's the offer. For Jerry, Megan, and Susan, and the entire team, it's me, Erik Ainge. Thanks for joining us. And again, visit the website, theorganizedinvestor.com. Thanks for listening to our show, The Organized Investor Show, on News Talk 98.7, brought to you by Tennessee Wealth Management.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the Organized Investor or Tennessee Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Erik Ainge is the host of The Erik Ainge Show on 99.1 The Sports Animal weekdays from 9 to noon. Erik, his wife Susan, Megan Hubbard, and Jerry Goodman are all affiliated with Tennessee Wealth Management in Knoxville and Prospera Financial Services in Dallas, Texas. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning or before making any investment decision. And please consult legal or tax professionals for specific information regarding your individual situation. Brokerage and advisory services are provided by Tennessee Wealth Management through Prospera Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. The Organized Investor is a brand name operated by Tennessee Wealth Management for educational platform purposes. Want to meet the team from The Organized Investor in person? Join us at a free Organized Investor workshop. You'll get a 60-page workbook, a great meal, and learn how to get free estate planning documents through our partner Trust and Will. Our next workshop is Wednesday, May 20th at 6 p.m. at Chesapeake's Restaurant on Parkside Drive in West Knoxville. There's no cost or obligation to attend, however, seating is limited. So reserve your spot at theorganizedinvestor.com or call 865-415-2058. That's 865-415-2058.